I would double John Kennedy's budget because he's one of the, in my opinion, one of the better thinkers trying to keep this in proper perspective. And
definitely.
If you comment on this, I'd double his budget. Say, look, you get into this thing. If I were the governor, I'd say, look, come on up here with me. I'm going to give you more people. You get into this thing and help me figure this out. You've been the only responsible voice during these terrible.
Jim, that would be smart of the governor to bring in John Kennedy as an ally. And not do what Jindal did was ostracize him for 8 years, but work with him. That would be one of the smartest things Jon Bel Edwards could do.
Yeah, well, listen, John Kennedy, though, is running for U.S. Senate. Okay, and he's going to try to get, the last thing he is going to want to do, I got to tell you, is to befriend Jon Bel Edwards, a, quote, moderate Democrat. It ain't going to happen, not here in Louisiana. I want John, look, and you talk about have the other guys cut their budget about 50%. So we're going to cut the Department of Health and Hospitals. We don't need those hospitals. We don't need those people who are going and checking on the restaurants and the hospitals and everything else. We don't need them. We have a real problem here that Bobby Jindal created. And the legislature, many of them who are currently in the legislature, created. And to focus on Jon Bel Edwards because he's putting some ideas out there, and say, hey, man, you just threw everything out. Well, hey, it's time for us to start thinking about what we're going to do.
Well, I do. Look, hey, folks, I'm your new leader. I'm going to come in and solve these problems. Now, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to throw you 100 ideas out there. Everything all over the map, tax increases, cuts here, and then good luck. We'll see what we're going to do. To me, that's leadership, Steve. Come up, say, listen, here's 4 things we're going to do. Boom, 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 boom.
So what are those 4 things? You were in government for 28 years. So what are those 4 things that we can do within the short term, given the fact that we have one special session coming up and a regular session that's not a money session? What can we do where we're not going to have either people from the extremes coming out there and rioting? What can we do for $750 million and maybe more, assuming oil doesn't continue to go down?
Well, again, the proposal's been out there for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours ago. He called the press conference. But I would do what I said initially. I'd sit down with people like Kennedy, and I'm not high on Kennedy, wherever he runs for it, but he's been the treasurer. He's the money guy. He knows this stuff. And I sit down and say, do we need to spend $750 million in the next 6 months? We've got 6 months to go. How much of that can we freeze and not spend so that it's not 750? Let's get it down to maybe 350 or 400 million. And I can't tell you 1, 2, 3 right now. I've thrown out a lot of ideas about putting a freeze on all spending for anything in the office in terms of acquisitions, maybe putting a freeze back on the capital outlay fund so that you could cut back on the bond obligations, cutting out on all the travel. That doesn't solve huge problems, but it's a start. So you get that 750 way down. I'd try to get it in half is what I'd do.
Well, I'd also cut out the consulting contracts. I'd take as much from the rainy day fund as we possibly could take. Maybe there's a way the legislature could allow the state to dip into the rainy day fund more than $128 million. Maybe there's a way to take more of that because we're in a rainy day. We're definitely in a rainy from the oil spill cleanup. I think they're talking about $200 million there. That's halfway. That's almost half of $750 million. And then if you implement some of the cost savings that Jim is talking about, that's going to save you some money. So maybe you can get it through possibly another type of, quote, revenue enhancer other than sales taxes. Maybe we can look at cigarette taxes. Maybe we can look at other things that maybe aren't as harmful to us as an increase in sales taxes. That's a 25% increase.
Yeah, listen.
The other thing is, we just shouldn't accept the fact that we hear there's a $1.2 billion hole for the next fiscal year.
1.9 billion. 1.9 billion. Yeah.
I've heard even more than that. So I don't know what it is totally.
if you spend and fund everything we did at the beginning of this fiscal year. I don't know if we should be doing all that. Like I say, let's sit down with 6 months to go. Some very bright people can look at next year's budget and say, we don't have 1.9 or 2 billion or whatever it is. We're going to have to cut this thing back. So let's get it down to what's manageable rather than saying, oh, we got to give everybody what they've had in the past and let them have all that money. And we're just going to find a way to raise revenue. So there's just a number of options out there. If you bring in some responsible people to look at it, and maybe the governor is doing this, but today's press conference was just throwing all these ideas out with any focus on really what we're trying to zero in on. That's my concern.
And what this sort of follows up on, I know, Steve, it's only 8 days, but he had a big loss with the House Speaker's position. So I don't think he wants to start off his term as governor losing. I mean, I think he wants a win here in the special session, and I think it really behooves him to work with the legislature before announcing all these ideas. I mean, did he get legislative buin on this?
Yeah, no, he hasn't gotten buy-in, but he certainly has talked to them, and I think this is an ongoing issue. I didn't get the impression that Jon Bel Edwards is saying, look, here's a plan, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push it, and, the heck with you guys, just get out the way. That's not my impression. My impression, he's saying, hey, guys, before you get involved in Mardi Gras, before, you forget that, that we have to deal with bad water and bad air and bad politics, we have a bad problem. And we've got to focus on that now, because in mid-February, I'm going to call a special session. And we don't want to just all of a sudden, in 3 weeks from now, we don't want to all of a sudden just wake up, hey, why didn't you tell us? You mean we got how much of a problem? 1.2 million? Oh, no, 1.9 million. We have how much of a problem? 750 billion. I mean, that's extraordinary. So I think getting it out there, letting us discuss it, have programs like this, going around the state, having real good discussions, get business interests involved. But, I mean, anybody who's going to say, hey, we can just do this by cutting, I say, fine. If you're in office now, like the treasurer, cut it by 50%. Cut your salary and show us exactly that you can do it. Okay? Show us what you can do with 50% more or 50% less.
Well, I think he would probably say, Steve, that his department has been cut by a bigger percentage than other departments during the Jindal years. So, I mean, I think he's been targeted already.
He didn't need the money. I mean, really. I mean,
as Jim says, he does good work with the money he gets.
I triple his salary, 4 times his salary.
He's running for U.S. He's running for U.S. Senate. Okay.
Well, he hasn't announced. He hasn't announced.
He's running for U.S. Senate. So everything he's going to be doing is going to be politically inclined. Okay, for his candidacy for U.S. Senate.
It doesn't matter. If it's a good idea, we need it. I mean, if he can come to the table with his experience, I don't care if he's running for the Senate or not. I mean, we need his leadership. And he knows a lot more about it than anybody else.
So if I were him, I'd tell the governor, look, I'm going to help you, and I've got some good ideas to help you. I want you to stay out of the U.S. Senate race. You go be governor and run the office of governor and stay out of the U.S. Senate race, and I will work myself silly trying to help you solve this problem. Pretty good trade-off. If I were governor, I'd take it in New York second. So
wait. You're saying that Edwards should stay out the U.S. Senate race? Is that what you're saying?
Run the governor's office. Run the governor's office. Bobby Jindal didn't get in the U.S. Senate race this last time.
Yeah, but Jon Bel Edwards hasn't talked about U.S. Senate race, has he?
No, endorsing anybody, Steve.
Sure, no, I understand. I understand. So, yeah, I agree. Jon Bel Edwards should focus in on what he needs to, what he's hired for. And we have a treasurer who had an eye for U.S. Senate, said he wanted to be treasurer, and we have a major problem. And you're saying that you want to go ahead and basically give him the treasury and cut everybody else out. Why did John Kennedy say, hey, I'm not going to run. We got a real crisis here, and I'm going to go and ally with Jon Bel Edwards, and we're going to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's his call. I'm just saying the guy has a lot of intrinsic knowledge and some awfully good ideas that were not considered by Jindal. And I think here, look, I'm looking over this list. This is from the governor's office, Steve, right here. And it's one business tax after the other. So instead of having the business community say, look, I know, Governor, you got a problem. We want to be there and work with you, and we'll give a little bit. He just thrown out one business tax after the other. I'm afraid he's going to build up so much animosity from the business community that nothing's going to be done. I would have found it more responsible to call these various groups in hour by hour, day after day, next 3 weeks, work Saturdays and Sundays, and get enough more input. As you said, Steve, he's had 6 working days to deal with all of this, and I just feel like he's shooting from the hip and jumping too soon.